design, and then we're going to start getting down to some real meaty personal questions. Um, I got to give the people what they want, right? Um, we've talked a little bit about QA and how viable of an opportunity is QA to get your start, especially coming from a design background. Do many QA people end up in design? Is that a realistic way to get started?
Yeah. So the interesting thing is people always talk about QA being a place to start, and I think it's important. It's a good place that you can get experience. But I always tell people, try and get the job you want to do before you just go to QA. Ian Wright, who was graduated not too long ago and works at IT now, him and I were having a conversation when I was here in June, and he said, I think I'm just going to go to QA and figure out my path there. And I said, well, what do you want to do? And he's like, well, I want to do, playtest lab and stuff like that. And I said, then apply for a job doing that. Don't apply for a job that you don't want to do just as a fallback. Try and take some time to do what you want to do. And now, he works at IT and helps run playtests for all of ZeniMax for all their products, which is huge. I think it is a viable option, but I think you should exhaust, your ability to try and do what you want to do. We're not seeing as many people moving out of QA as we did, even 5 years ago. It's kind of more, it's a career path in itself now. But it is still, you're getting game experience, you're getting shift titles. That does look good on your resume. So it is a viable option.
I'm not sure how aware you are here of what our students, our master's students are doing with the usability lab. How much emphasis is, and by the way, they're doing some pretty incredible things. How much more emphasis, if any, is being put at your individual studios on, usability, not QA, but usability? Do you have departments now doing that kind of thing, or is that just whoever can pick up the slack or whatever?
It's huge. Yeah. I mean, it's not only do a lot of studios have it embedded. I mean, Bungie has people with doctorates that are studying the usability of their games. I think they have 4 people, 3 of whom have like PhDs who do it. It has a team and Epic has a team as well. It's huge, and not only there, but when you put a game on a Microsoft console, they also have usability labs that you can use there. And then there's outsourcing groups. It's becoming a bigger and bigger part of the industry. When I started in the industry, when I started at Megatouch, I ran all of usability. Nobody knew what that word was when I started there. And when we started doing it, we saw the difference it could make. And now, I think it's part of pretty much every major team.
I think the way that game development has grown through the years just has made more and more room for usability. Like 20 years ago, a game was made by, well, maybe a little bit more than 20, maybe like 30 years ago. A game was made by just a programmer, and that was all it took to make a game. And then as games got a little bit more complex, then you started to have to bring in dedicated designers, dedicated artists, dedicated QA. Now we're at a point where games are getting so complex that they need usability departments. They need people focused on just trying the game, playing through the game, and not necessarily trying to break it, but just trying to see if it's fun, trying to see if it's too complicated, too simple. We're at that point now. Games are that complex where there are roles specifically for that.
Also, you have to remember, like, games are now a mass medium. I mean, there's 20 million people playing Call of Duty or Madden. Before, when it was a smaller niche group of hardcore gamers, it was different. XCOM, there was an interesting article in Game Developer about XCOM Enemy Unknown, and they were talking about the first XCOM game as one of the hardest, like, really impossible game to kind of get into because there was just a million things to do and there was no instruction. And they were talking about, well, how do we bring that to a modern audience? Do we dumb it down or do we allow tutorials? And it was a big struggle that they worked with for a long time with the usability team to make it so you could play that game by getting into it and having a bit of a learning curve as